Church President Russell M. Nelson, a towering figure in modern religious history, has passed away at the remarkable age of 101. But behind the headlines lies a life filled with groundbreaking decisions, controversial moments, and stories that many have never heard. From his early medical career to his rise as a spiritual leader, Nelson's journey is one of resilience, vision, and sometimes heated debate. You won't believe the moments that shaped his legacy and the revelations that are now coming to light after his death. This is where it gets truly interesting. Russell M. Nelson's passing at the age of 101 marks the end of an era for millions of followers around the world. But what made his leadership so extraordinary, and at times controversial, goes far beyond his age or longevity. Today, we'll uncover the untold stories, behind-the-scenes decisions, and pivotal moments that defined Nelson's life and his influence on the church. From his early days as a pioneering heart surgeon to his transformation into a religious icon, Nelson's journey is full of unexpected twists. He wasn't just a leader. He was a visionary who made decisions that reshaped how millions worship and connect with faith. But with groundbreaking changes came criticism, skepticism, and heated debates. In this video, you'll discover the reforms that shocked members, the controversies that divided opinions, and the personal struggles Nelson faced behind the public persona. You won't believe the rare insights, private encounters, and insider revelations that are now surfacing after his passing. Stay with us as we explore not only his legacy, but also the hidden moments that few have ever seen. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete understanding of Russell M. Nelson's life, the decisions that defined him, and why his passing is resonating far beyond the church walls. But here's the part that surprises many. The most controversial aspects of his leadership were often hidden from public view. We'll get to those in just a moment. Russell Marion Nelson was born on September 9, 1924, in Salt Lake City, Utah, at a time when the world was still recovering from the aftermath of the First World War and the Spanish flu pandemic. From the very beginning, Nelson showed signs of curiosity, determination, and an unwavering drive to make a difference. His early years were marked by academic excellence and a profound interest in science and medicine, a passion that would later define the first half of his extraordinary career. Nelson's pursuit of medicine was not a casual decision. He entered the University of Utah, where he quickly distinguished himself as one of the brightest medical students of his generation. After graduating in 1945, he faced the daunting task of completing a residency during a period when heart surgery was still in its infancy. Yet, Nelson was undeterred. His ambition was not merely to practice medicine, but to pioneer breakthroughs that could save countless lives. By the early 1950s, Nelson had become a rising star in cardiac surgery. He was instrumental in developing techniques that would revolutionize open-heart surgery. Colleagues described him as meticulous, innovative, and often relentless in his pursuit of perfection. These qualities would later carry over into his religious leadership, though the challenges of spiritual leadership would require an entirely different kind of courage. What made Nelson stand out, even in the medical field, was his combination of technical skill and empathy. He was known for spending hours with patients and their families, explaining complex procedures with clarity and compassion. Stories from former patients reveal a man who was not only brilliant but deeply human, understanding that behind every heart he repaired was a life filled with fears, hopes, and dreams. But while his medical career flourished, there were whispers of the tension between his growing faith and his scientific pursuits. Nelson was deeply spiritual, and even as a young surgeon, he was actively involved in his church community. Friends noted that he often sought to reconcile the rigorous demands of science with his spiritual beliefs, a balancing act that would later define much of his leadership as church president. By the 1960s, Nelson was already a household name in the medical community, renowned for his skill, innovations, and dedication. Yet, few could have predicted that this heart surgeon would one day ascend to the highest leadership position in one of the world's largest religious organizations. His transition from medicine to ministry was not sudden. It was a gradual calling, rooted in decades of service, study, and a vision for impact that extended far beyond the operating room. And here's the part many don't know. Even at the peak of his medical career, Nelson began quietly engaging in spiritual leadership, mentoring young members of his church, and slowly preparing for a role that would demand courage, wisdom, and a willingness to make decisions that would sometimes shock millions. In the next section, we'll explore how Nelson's transition from a groundbreaking surgeon to a religious leader began and the early challenges he faced as he stepped into a role that would forever change the trajectory of his life and the church. While Russell M. Nelson's medical career was thriving, a parallel journey was quietly unfolding, one that would eventually propel him into the highest echelons of religious leadership. Even as a successful surgeon, Nelson felt a deep, persistent calling to serve his church community in ways that extended beyond personal devotion. It was not a sudden revelation, but a gradual recognition that his life's purpose might involve more than saving hearts in the operating room. It might also be about guiding hearts spiritually. Nelson began taking on responsibilities within the church, initially focusing on local service and mentoring young members. Colleagues and family members often remarked that his natural leadership skills, honed in the high-pressure world of cardiac surgery, translated seamlessly into his religious roles. Just as he once made life-and-death decisions in the operating room, he now approached spiritual matters with the same precision, thoughtfulness, and unwavering commitment. In the 1970s, Nelson's role within the church began to expand significantly. He was appointed to key leadership positions, where he oversaw administrative responsibilities, community outreach, and the development of programs aimed at strengthening faith among members. It was during this period that he demonstrated a unique ability to balance tradition with innovation, often proposing initiatives that modernized church practices while staying true to core teachings. However, Nelson's rise in the church hierarchy was not without challenges. Some members were skeptical of his dual identity as a medical professional and a religious leader. They questioned whether someone deeply entrenched in science could fully understand and guide spiritual matters. Nelson responded not with defensive arguments but through example. His meticulous nature, ethical standards, and genuine concern for people's well-being gradually won over critics, establishing his credibility and trustworthiness among the faithful. What made this period especially critical was Nelson's understanding of timing and preparation. He did not seek power or recognition for its own sake. Instead, he focused on learning, observing, and quietly preparing for the day when he might be called to lead on a global scale. This careful, methodical approach would later define his tenure as church president, where every major decision reflected years of study, prayer, and discernment. It was also during these years that Nelson began to tackle complex, sometimes controversial, issues within the church. From doctrinal clarifications to administrative restructuring, he faced resistance from both within and outside the organization. Yet these challenges shaped his leadership style: deliberate, transparent, and often visionary. Nelson learned how to communicate effectively, manage dissent, and implement changes that would leave a lasting impact on the global church community. One of the lesser-known aspects of Nelson's early church service was his commitment to personal connection. He made it a point to meet with individuals from all walks of life, listening to their concerns, sharing guidance, and offering support. Many recall receiving letters, personal visits, and counsel from Nelson that left lasting impressions, an approach that foreshadowed the deeply relational leadership style he would employ as church president. By the 1980s and 1990s, Nelson's reputation as a wise, compassionate, and forward-thinking leader was firmly established. His transition from medical luminary to spiritual guide was complete, and he was increasingly recognized as someone uniquely equipped to navigate the complexities of leading a worldwide religious organization. This was a man whose life had been defined by discipline, intelligence, and service, and now those same qualities would shape the lives of millions. But here's the part that continues to intrigue scholars and followers alike. Nelson's early church decisions, though often subtle at the time, planted the seeds for reforms and changes that would later spark widespread discussion and even controversy. From shifting administrative structures to introducing new initiatives for engagement, these formative years quietly set the stage for the monumental legacy he would leave behind. Russell M. Nelson's ascent to the presidency of the church was the culmination of decades of dedication, spiritual insight, and meticulous preparation. By the time he assumed the highest leadership position, he had already spent more than half a century serving as a leader, mentor, and guide to countless members of the church. Yet, the path to this role was far from straightforward. Nelson became the 17th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the remarkable age of 93, making him one of the oldest individuals to assume such a position. His election came at a time when the church was navigating both internal and external challenges, ranging from doctrinal debates to global expansion and technological adaptation. Members looked to him not just as a spiritual leader, but as a visionary capable of guiding the church into the modern era while maintaining its foundational principles. From the very beginning of his presidency, Nelson demonstrated a willingness to implement reforms that were bold and, in some cases, controversial. One of the first major decisions he made involved the structure of church leadership. Nelson emphasized a more streamlined and efficient administration, seeking to ensure that leaders at all levels could act decisively while remaining accountable. This included reorganizing certain leadership councils, introducing new reporting protocols, and placing greater emphasis on direct communication between church leaders and members worldwide. But perhaps the most widely discussed reform during Nelson's tenure was his approach to personal and spiritual revelation. He encouraged members to seek personal guidance through prayer and reflection, placing a renewed emphasis on individual agency and spiritual responsibility. While many embraced this approach, some critics argued that it challenged long-standing traditions and created uncertainty about the boundaries of authority. Nelson was also a pioneer in leveraging technology to connect the global church community. Recognizing the power of digital platforms, he championed initiatives to broadcast sermons, provide online scripture access, and expand missionary work into previously untapped regions. These efforts not only modernized the church's operations, but also sparked debate about the role of technology in faith, with some members praising his vision and others questioning its implications for traditional worship practices. Another defining aspect of Nelson's presidency was his focus on inclusion and diversity. He made deliberate efforts to engage with international congregations, emphasizing that the church's mission extended far beyond its American roots. This approach led to increased global participation, a more culturally aware leadership, and initiatives aimed at addressing the unique needs of members in different regions. Yet, these same reforms sometimes met resistance from those who preferred a more centralized or uniform approach to church governance. Controversy also accompanied some of Nelson's doctrinal clarifications. Throughout his presidency, he addressed sensitive topics ranging from family structure to church policies, often prompting widespread discussion and debate. While many followers viewed these clarifications as necessary guidance, others interpreted them as abrupt or even divisive. Nelson's handling of such matters reflected a leadership style that was firm yet compassionate, seeking to balance adherence to foundational principles with responsiveness to a changing world. What many people do not realize is the personal toll that these reforms took on Nelson. Leading a global organization is never easy, and Nelson faced criticism, scrutiny, and even opposition from within the church. Despite this, he remained steadfast, often reflecting privately on the weight of his responsibilities and the ethical considerations of each decision. Close associates describe him as a leader who spent countless hours in prayer and contemplation, seeking clarity before taking any action that would affect millions of lives. Nelson's tenure also highlighted his ability to inspire through storytelling and personal connection. Members frequently recount sermons that combined historical context, personal anecdotes, and spiritual guidance. These moments, while deeply moving, also carried subtle calls to action, urging followers to embrace change, take personal responsibility, and contribute positively to their communities. By the time of his passing at 101, Nelson had left an indelible mark on the church. His reforms, visionary initiatives, and leadership style transformed the institution, modernized its operations, and sparked conversations that will continue for years to come. Yet, as with any transformative figure, his legacy is complex, celebrated by many, questioned by some, and always a subject of curiosity for historians, members, and observers alike. And here's a part that often surprises people. Many of the most controversial or debated aspects of Nelson's leadership only came to full light in his final years, when his decisions were scrutinized against a rapidly changing cultural and global landscape. In the next section, we will explore the legacy and final years of Russell M. Nelson, the challenges he faced, and the profound impact of his passing on the church and the world. Russell M. Nelson's final years as church president were marked by both profound accomplishments and controversies that sparked discussion across the globe. At the age of 101, he had become not only a spiritual leader, but also a symbol of longevity, perseverance, and unwavering dedication to faith. Yet, despite his revered status, his leadership was far from universally unchallenged, reflecting the complex balance between tradition and progress in a global religious organization. One of the most notable aspects of Nelson's legacy was his emphasis on modernization. He recognized that the church, with millions of members worldwide, needed to adapt to a rapidly changing world. Under his guidance, digital platforms became central to worship, missionary work, and member engagement. Sermons, talks, and messages were broadcasted online, enabling members from remote regions to participate in ways that were previously impossible. While many praised these efforts as visionary, some critics argued that such reliance on technology risked diluting the personal, communal aspects of faith. Nelson's doctrinal clarifications and policy adjustments also attracted significant attention. During his tenure, he addressed sensitive issues from family structures and gender roles to questions of leadership accountability. Each pronouncement was made with the intent of reinforcing core church teachings, but they sometimes ignited heated debates among members and observers alike. Scholars note that Nelson's approach reflected a rare combination of assertiveness and pastoral care. He aimed to maintain doctrinal clarity while emphasizing compassion and understanding for those grappling with change. One of the defining elements of Nelson's final years was his remarkable energy and work ethic. Despite advanced age, he maintained a rigorous schedule, traveling internationally to meet congregations, deliver sermons, and oversee church operations. Close associates describe him as tireless, with a remarkable ability to recall details, provide guidance, and inspire leaders at all levels. Yet, there were moments when the sheer magnitude of responsibilities exposed the limits of human endurance, reminding the world that even the most devoted leaders are ultimately mortal. Controversy often accompanied Nelson's legacy, particularly among those who felt that some reforms were abrupt or insufficiently inclusive. Critics questioned whether rapid changes, such as adjustments in leadership structures or shifts in doctrinal emphasis, might alienate long-standing members. Conversely, many supporters argued that his bold decisions were necessary to position the church for future generations, ensuring relevance in an increasingly globalized and connected world. This tension between tradition and modernization became a central theme of Nelson's final years, highlighting the delicate balance inherent in spiritual leadership. Nelson's influence extended beyond institutional matters to personal inspiration. Many members recount being deeply moved by his sermons, which often combined historical insight, scriptural interpretation, and practical guidance for navigating life's challenges. His ability to weave together faith, personal experience, and ethical principles left a lasting impression, fostering a sense of connection and purpose among followers. These personal touches helped humanize a leader who, in many ways, operated on a scale almost unimaginable, guiding millions while maintaining intimate connections with individuals. The final chapter of Nelson's life also underscored his commitment to preparation and succession. He took careful steps to ensure continuity of leadership, mentoring future church leaders and implementing structures that would allow the organization to continue thriving after his passing. This focus on succession planning reflected his understanding of legacy. True leadership is measured not only by accomplishments, but by the stability and resilience left behind for those who follow. Nelson's passing at 101 marked the end of an era for the church, but it also cemented his place in history. His life story, from a pioneering heart surgeon to a visionary religious leader, serves as a testament to discipline, faith, and unwavering dedication. He demonstrated how intellect, compassion, and spiritual conviction can intersect to create profound societal impact. Yet, his life and leadership also invite reflection on the challenges of navigating change, the responsibilities of guiding a global community, and the complexities inherent in leaving a lasting legacy. In the end, Russell M. Nelson's story is both inspiring and instructive. It reveals the extraordinary potential of human dedication, the inevitable controversies that accompany transformative leadership, and the enduring power of faith to shape lives across generations. The church he led and the world he influenced will continue to grapple with and honor his contributions for decades to come.